Hi students, now we will get started on analyzing our architectural projects with a plugin called Insight. This analysis usually gives you a lot of sort of sustainability information. So it's a building performance analysis software, and it's really good for creating graphics such as this daylight analysis, which we will do later, or things like how efficient your building is currently. So we're going to get started with that. The first thing we're going to do is open a new document. There is, I'll just go ahead and open this now as an architectural template, hit OK. There is this option in Revit to have new conceptual massing. So we will be doing massing in this project, but you don't want to use that as a template. It doesn't have the analysis software built into it. Okay. So the first thing that you will be doing is creating a 16 unit 4-story building. I don't really care how those things get assigned, but what's important is that you use that as a basis for generating an analysis. So we'll start with massing. And under the Massing and Site tab, you have all these options. So let's go ahead and do in-place mass. So Revit has enabled the show mass mode. Newly created mass will be visible. Great. Close. Okie dokie. So I am going to very scientifically draw a rectangular bit of architecture. So let's say I want every apartment to be 30 by 32 by 20. So the overall building will have to be 80. So my thought there is that I would have 4 20-foot wide units that are 32 feet long. So I'll click that there. I can now finish this mass and then go into the 3D mode to sort of see what's going on there. I am going to click over to my elevations, however, and start to build those up, because if I want to add floors, it's easiest to do if these are in place. So head over to your elevation. 10 foot, you know, that sounds fantastic. So let's go into, it's under structure. And you go over here to the level. You can also type LL. Click on that, and you are instantly in sort of level creation mode. If you hover over the edge, it's gonna line it up there, and you can just drag it across. We gotta do one more because it's 4 stories. And now we're done with that. The good thing to know about this is, I mean, it's very awkward to have your level over here when 1, 2, 3, oh, I need one more. Let's just do another one. Let's do it from here. Okay. So as I was saying, it's awkward to have this level datum over here. You just uncheck that and check that, and you have them all over here. So those checkbox, technically, if you're feeling like it's really important to have them on both sides, you could do that. So that's the flexibility that gives you. most of the time it's only on one side. So here we are, we have our levels, so that's going to be helpful when we go about making our floors. So let's go back to our 3D view. We now have this mass, and we can go back to the massing and site. In place mass, okie dokie. So going back to the mass, I am actually going to go ahead and delete this mass because it had no depth to it. And we can easily correct that. So I'm just going to draw this baby again. Go back to massing, in place mass, mass 1, okay. Again, just go back to level 1 quickly using my rectangle tool, and 20 by 80, 32 by 80. There you go. Now after that, we need to create a form. Easiest to see this in 3D view. Grab this and create form. And it immediately pops up. If you look at it in an elevation, it's there, and it's easier to do that. But again, like all sort of projects, you can grab this and adjust things. You can also do more fun things, like make insane trapezoids, or you can grab specific points and make it cantilever out. You can make it go down. So this is like supposedly a very fun massing tool that allows you to do lots of things. Oops. All right, so this is my gem of a building. So beautiful. It's not bad. So let's say we are going to go ahead and finish this mass. So the next step, there's really no reason not to analyze this as a pure mass. It doesn't really do you any good. We're going to just go mass floors, and we're going to put all of them in. Except level 5, which is the roof. I just haven't gotten around to relabeling that. So here we go. And now there are floors in everything. Again, very amazingly quick way to get everything laid out in the mass. All right. So now we will do our introduction to the analysis software. We have built a mass, we've made it super beautiful, we have added our stories, and then we have inserted our floors. We will go to Analyze. So there are a lot of analytical tools here. You have just for loads, you have for space and zones. This is other kinds of data that you would need. We will be interested in the energy optimization. And while it doesn't say it here, it is the link to Insight. So the first thing you should do is geographically locate your project. And that is the global symbol at the top. You click on it, it automatically puts you in Boston, which we are not. So you can either go through the default city list, which of course Long Beach, Los Angeles, all those places are already on here because they're really big cities. or you could enter certain latitudes, or you could have used the internet mapping service, which frankly I find to be a little bit sluggish. Use daylight savings, okay, whatever, it's fine. All this is just giving you some sun information, and then it is linking you to the closest weather station. The weather station will feed information like humidity about this project to the software. The next thing you want to check out is this thing called energy settings. It specifies the parameters used to create the analytical model. So if you click on it, it is asking you a couple questions. So what is your mode? We will also be using building elements, so click both. This would allow you to sort of build a conceptual mass and then build the building elements around it, and then not have the building elements affect the analyses, which if you have a really detailed building model, that could crash your computer. Ground plane is level 1, whatever level you drew it. You could pick new construction or existing. These two numbers here, this has to do with resolution of the analyses. So if we're going to leave this now, we can call this sort of default the draft. This can go down to 6 inches, which means it is recalculating every 6-inch space of that building, and then also analyzing the surface of every 3 inches. So this number could be 3 inches. Perimeter zone depth is when there is a barrier from the wall that is it's causing certain environmental conditions. For example, if you have a typical housing situation, you typically have a double loaded corridor with apartments on each side. That condition is this perimeter zone depth. So if the apartment was only 15 feet wide, and then it was a corridor, and then there was another apartment that was 15 feet wide, that would be a 15-foot perimeter zone depth. For me, I already know that these apartments are going to be split into 4 segments, almost like cutting bread, so I will have this at 0. And then perimeter zone division has to do with zoning for HVAC, and we don't really have that yet. So if you click OK, we now are at the point where we can actually go ahead and see what happens when we do the analysis. I'm going to go ahead and just go create energy model. And it's all turned to blue. What it's showing you is the stuff that it will analyze. This sort of jaggedness has to do with its resolution. But this is what it is going to analyze in the software. So let's just go ahead, see what happens, and then we'll come back to optimize. So after you have placed your location, updated your project information, you've generated, it usually says generated, and you've generated your model. Now you can go ahead and optimize it. So the first time I opened the software, it kind of made me log in and all this stuff. Eventually, after you've logged in, you will just automatically go to this Insights when you click optimize. Whatever new thing you create gets dumped in the all uncategorized folder. If I click in here, this is something I did yesterday while I was testing the software. So this is like an old uncategorized model. Currently, our model isn't even ready yet. So for me, I think it took like, I had not great internet. I think it took about 30 minutes for the analysis to happen. So while Insight is processing, it's up in the cloud, it's not on your computer. You can go about your business. We're gonna start the process of adding walls. So one of the things that, you can absolutely start to do is more fun things, like in the massing and site, you can add some trees. They don't really calculate, but love trees. You can also start to add parking spots. So if you have never used this, this is a good place to do that. And you can also add additional masses around it. So for example, see, I'm already drawing a parking spot. I'm gonna just draw that parking spot, hit modify, grab it. Let's just say I know that I want to array this 6 times. So now I have 6 parking spots using the array tool. So I have some parking. I'm starting to make my site more like my site, but I'm going to also start 3D. I'm going to start identifying the walls. So one of the things that you can absolutely do, because we have checked that building elements and conceptual massing elements will be calculated, is you can just go straight to the wall command and draw a wall. Let's just do this very unscientifically. Escape. Okay. So this person's a little bit squished, but that's okay. Just eyeball it. Wonderful. So now let's look in 3D. Again, of course, those walls are not extending the way I want them to, so let's go ahead, grab them, say the base constraint is 1 and the top constraint is level 5. Okay, so while this is insane and we could go about remodeling this clip, let's just look at another modeling tool for identifying walls, which is in your massing. So you can, again, call out specific walls, floors, roofs, and curtain systems. So if you click wall, it is asking you to click around and say that it's a wall. You could say the whole thing is like a curtain system, like all glass, really bad for all things energy efficient, right? You could go here and say, this is a concrete wall, and so is this. Worst apartments ever, but okay. Okay. So that too will have an impact. And then more importantly, you can go ahead and enter windows. So let's just go to level 1. Let's just put some windows in. Let's pick a little bigger window. Slightly bigger. I'm going to grab this window. I'm going to array it. Oops. It's kind of generating a preview, so it'll be fine. And I'm going to say, let's do just eyeballing at like 6. Okay. We'll center it. Let's do 7. That's pretty good. You can go ahead, right click, select all instances in the whole project, and then, oops. And you're going to go ahead and just go ahead and copy. So you can copy to clipboard, and then if you hover over paste from clipboard, stand by the paste arrow, you can have it aligned to selected levels. So if you click that, you're like, I want it on these 3, not level 5 because it's the roof. And you hit OK. Oh, okay. See, this is because our wall is crooked and there's a warning, so I'm going to just delete that instance. I know what it is, but we can look at it in 3D view. Yeah, so let's just delete these right now. So we are just going to go ahead and delete these random floating. Not the best design, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and try and trim these walls down because that's not good design either. Go into mass siding, create a roof for this beautiful thing. Create roof, and then we should be able to attach the top and base to this roof. So that's in the Modify tab, grab the wall, attach top base, and that will, oh my, to this, okay. All right. So here's the most beautiful condo in the world, super nice. So let's go ahead and upload this whole thing into Insight and see what it gives us. So we're going to go straight back to the analyses. Before you do a new model, remember we had, let's just get rid of this. We had a sort of less refined model, and now we have windows, walls, curtains, curtain wall systems, etc., we're going to get a different analysis. So we can go ahead and delete the energy model. Okay. And then we can generate it. Process complete. It's been created. Okay. And optimize. Okay, so we have finally processed. Let's go ahead and have a look at what was generated. You click on, if you end up here, again, all the stuff will be in all uncategorized. So if you just made a new model, it's going straight into all uncategorized. Let's say logically we want it in the 231 lesson 3 folder. You can actually use these colons to edit pictures. You can imagine these sort of edgy curtain wall system images aren't the most easy thing to navigate. You can also add models, but you can do that inside as well. So we are inside. We have something I generated yesterday. Click Add Model. I believe this is it. They all kind of look the same. There we go. It's coming. So click into it. You can quickly see based on these windows that this is indeed our model, even though it's kind of hard to tell. There is some bad geometry that I did not notice prior to being okay with this. So the first thing you sort of see is there are these navigations. You can orbit, which means you can go around. You can pan. Again, these are common 3D modeling tools. Zoom. First person is a walk around. You can actually use A, W, D to sort of navigate. S is back. So this is like the WASD, the gamer methodology for navigating. You can also do all these other sort of focal length adjustments, etc. So this is pretty useful. You can also do sections. This is all sort of designed so that you can talk to your clients about things specifically. We'll get more into the graphics of it next week. But yeah, for example, you can look in on the section and see specific environmental things that will happen later. You can measure. Obviously, the most fun is this exploded tool. So apparently they decided that this is an easier way to look at things. So, okay. It's fun. So these are sort of your visualization options. You can look at your model browser, which allows you to highlight specific instances. I don't know how this is helpful, but like in the future, you could imagine how these surfaces could be useful to you. And then you can go full screen if you are in a meeting. Okay. So this is all great and pretty and nice, and we like it. You can explode in multiple things. But what's important is sort of this. So this is where your clients, whether they're energy model specialists or whether they're the people buying it, are going to be interested in, for example, this ASHRAE is an industry standard. Everything has to be below this. So luckily we are, but we are very far from the 2030 mark of net zero. So this would need some work, some benchmark comparison. The building orientation, current setting is here. So all I did, these are called widgets in this system. They are going to be showing you the comparison first, model history, sure, but then it's going to give you recommendations. So it's saying, well, basically this building is oriented the worst way possible. It starts with this data, and then it's like, okay, so this other option would cost 9 cents more a year. This one all the way down here is 71 cents. So if I switched to that, I would actually be much better off from a sustainability point. So these are sort of indicators of where you could go with your project. Apparently there's like 200 of these. We will get into shading, eastern walls, and optimization later next week. But what I would like you all to do for a submission is to design a ASHRAE 90.1 or below building, and then provide visualizations demonstrating that. I recommend that you do this generation by going into full screen mode. Probably not be in the model browser. You can click all the options again. Why is it in measure mode? But whatever. So what I would like you to do for your assignment hand-in is take a series of views, let's say 4, something like this, which is an axon, something from the other side, so let's call that 2. Let's do an exploded one. Zoomed out. And then let's do a perspectival one. This person's too far away. Something that's like that at the ground level. So let's try and do something like those 4 kinds of images. Again, I recommend that you just go ahead to your snipping tool, favorite tool, and okay, my bad. Okay, just now. And generate them like so, preferably in full screen mode. After that, I would like you to also submit, in addition to those 4 images, an image of this information. So this should be the same for everyone, and then just go ahead and snip this. As well. Save. Okay, so that's it for today. Look for the assignment in Canvas.